Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. So today we're doing another video on Buddhism. If you want to watch the prior videos I've done on Buddhism, check out the playlist on YouTube and that'll get you up to date. So today we're going to talk about the 5 hindrances and the 10 fetters. So what are these things? Basically, the 5 hindrances are 5 traits that all human beings carry. So it's characteristics specific to the human realm, and they're basically negative tendencies that keep you from, they're not considered sins or anything like that, but they're negative tendencies that keep you from awakening to your true nature. So the 5 hindrances are sensual desire, the desire to gratify your senses taken to the extreme, whether in anything, sex, money, greed, drugs and alcohol, any kind of sensual desire. That is the first hindrance. The second is ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and doubt. So we hold ill will towards people, we're lazy, we're restless and worried, and we doubt the truth. So what's important to know about these 5 hindrances is that they make up the lives of all beings in lesser or greater degrees, of all human beings. So Ram Dass, my teacher, used to say in one of his talks, imagine if you were putting together a city and you were going to make a community, and you were like, well, we need some people that are really strong sensual desires, and don't forget we need a lot of people with ill will. And let's get some people that are full of sloth and torpor, and probably some restlessness and worry. And to finish off the deal, let's get people with a lot of doubt. And you'd say, wow, that's going to be a disaster. Who would want that in their community? Well, that is all the people that you've ever met have higher or less degrees of these tendencies. Therefore, you can use that to cultivate compassion for all beings on earth, because we all are struggling with these things. If you didn't have those tendencies, you wouldn't have taken birth on this plane in the first place. You wouldn't be here. So anyone you meet is going to be filled with those things. How can you apply this to your own life? You also are going to have these things in varying degrees. So don't hate yourself for that, and don't think you're an evil person. Now, there's a very subtle difference between acceptance of who you are. It's said in the 12-step literature, freedom to change comes after acceptance of ourselves as we are. So we accept those things and then we can change. It does not mean that you go out blindly acting on those things as in your excuses, oh, we all have these qualities. So it's important to be able to differentiate between the two. It's a very subtle point, but I like to definitely take it as a point of self-compassion and compassion for others, because we're all struggling with that. And it says in here, like, the path of eradication of these in Buddhism, like, if you can eradicate these, then your soul will attain to very high levels of existence. Your soul will get very pure, and we're not going to get into all that here, but like, not returning, it'll get you off of this endless cycle of birth and death of which we are all on, which is why we're here in the first place. The 10 fetters is interesting. Some of them are the same. A couple of them, there's doubt and uncertainty, there's ill will. But the 10 fetters are a little more subtle. So these are like the hard ones. These are like for very high beings that have removed, say, some of those baser hindrances. The 10 fetters include ignorance, which is not understanding of the truth, not seeing how it is, not understanding, almost, it's also called right view in Buddhism. Restlessness, which we talked about. Conceit, which is a more subtle one. Here's one of the most powerful ones. Lust for material existence. Lust for material rebirth. So the desire to exist in the material world is a fetter that keeps beings bound. And then even lust for rebirth in a formless realm, which is way out of the league of which we're talking about here, but just for your intellects, that's saying even beings that are completely free from earth planes, from astral planes, which is like the ethereal planes of existence, and causal planes, and are in formless bliss. Even lust for rebirth in such a realm as that keeps you trapped. Next, ill will. We already talked about that. Ill will towards others, sensual desire. Here's an important one. Attachment to rites and rituals. So attachments to whatever your practices are, and whatever you consistently do in your life can still be considered a rite and a ritual. So attachment and clinging to the safety of those, even if it's rites and rituals that are used to get you free. And the Buddha said, if you take a boat and you paddle across to the other side of the shore of a great lake or a great ocean, when you get to the other side, you don't keep your boat with you and carry it with you. You leave it there at the dock. So whatever practice you do to take you across the ocean of suffering, whatever rituals, practices, prayers, meditations, understanding, eventually you have to let that go, because that's just the tool. And it's said in India, if you get a thorn in your foot, then you use a different thorn to pull out the first thorn, then when you're done, you don't keep the thorns, you throw them both away. So you use the method to get free, and then you discard the method. But there's great attachment that develops two methods. So that's one of the 10 parts of the 10 fetter. Next, doubt or uncertainty, especially about the Buddha's awakeness and the 9 super mundane consciousnesses. So basically what's that saying is that you do need a degree of faith it doesn't have to be in Buddhism specifically or the Buddha, but like faith that beings can awaken, faith that there's beings like Buddha or like Christ or like Krishna or like the Dalai Lama, faith in beings that have done the trip and got free, and that you could do the trip and get free like them. And if you don't believe that's even a thing, or that's even a possibility, that's not real, or that's impossible for you to do, well, that doubt and uncertainty is like, that's a huge part of what's holding you back. If you just let that go, you'd probably be twice as far as you are now. So like cultivating that faith is extremely important, and you need some catalyst usually to, some catalyst or some time of sustained practice, and where things start to change for you to notice, and that faith to sort of go on hyperdrive. And the very last of the 10 fetters, belief in a self. I talked about this in the last video with Anatman, which means no self. Belief in a self is a pretty far out teaching that came out of Buddhism, out of the Buddha's awakening. And that means that really Buddhism holds on to the fundamental idea that there's no self. And how I take this to be is that, and my teacher said it, my Zen teacher, he said, even if you attain enlightenment, keep practicing, because what you really are is so boundless and infinite. And that's just all that there is to it, is like the deepest part of yourself is so boundless and infinite that thinking of it as a limited self is very deceiving. So thinking of me as an ego, as a separate entity, is built into the game. That's how it works, right? You function as a separate person. You talk to people as separate people. But if you've ever been in heightened states of consciousness, you can see the fluid nature of mind and how minds connect to one another and actually are one another. And so this belief in a separate entity is part of the game, and it's how it goes. And that's why we're all in existence in the first place. If we didn't believe in a separate entity, you wouldn't be cognizing these words right now. However, in Buddhism, this is the most strongest of the fetters in the end, that bind you not just to this human life, but they bound you to the cycle of samsara, which means rebirth in the 6 realms of existence, in the realms of the gods, the titans, the humans, the animals, the pratans, and the hell realms. And they're bound by belief in a self, because that's what holds. I'm just going to get into this for the fun of it, but belief in a self, that's what holds your karma together. So like you think there's a you, so everything you do with intention it holds together a chain of karmic energy, basically a code of DNA, which then manifests into your soul and then into your body. And on whatever plane you manifest, that determines your life, because everybody else has it too. And it's all intertwined so deeply that determines who you are, who you connect with. That determines when you get born and what zodiac sign you have. It determines everything. It's an extremely beautiful, intricate game. However, there's vast suffering involved as well. And so that is what the Buddha realized, was that throughout these countless, you've been here since beginningless time going through this, and a lifetime is like a snap of a finger. And throughout this time that you've been doing this, you've went through tremendous suffering. Tremendous suffering. Can't be overstated. And so suffering of the loss of others, of dying. And there's even a discourse where the Buddha says, in all the lives you've lived, you've shed more blood than all the waters in the great oceans, just to give you a taste of like the tremendous amount of suffering inherent in conditioned existence. And like, so you alternate between pleasure and pain, which is not like some stuff like this. It's not something you contemplate to have fun or like to feel comforted. It's like beings come across these types of things when their soul starts to awaken and realize the discontentment inherent in material existence. So I just wanted to talk about these. I went a little deeper than I planned on going with this, but 5 hindrances and the 10 fetters. Have compassion for all beings, because everybody's fighting, as my friend in Alaska says, gave me a wristband that says everybody is fighting their own personal battle. So be compassionate to beings while you're here. Be compassionate to beings while also holding that infinite perspective.